rocking with the newsroom that never blinks. Baby, lock your doors, silence your phone, and turn that volume all the way up, because Blueface just detonated one of the most disturbing, most dangerous, most flat-out unbelievable highway situations the culture has seen this entire year, and the receipts are so ugly they are practically screaming out of the asphalt. We are talking about him at 4 in the morning, on a pitch-black stretch of freeway, tossing a beautiful dark-skinned young woman out of a moving vehicle like she was a piece of trash on a Tuesday. And the reason he did it will make your jaw physically unhinge. The rapper, a grown man with a public platform, could not sit through a 5-minute conversation about colorism without weaponizing his entire ego and putting a woman's literal safety in danger on an unlit highway shoulder in the middle of the night. Family, if that sentence alone did not slap the phone out of your hand, wait until you hear what he said with his own mouth on his own camera, because this is going down as one of the ugliest, coldest, most colorist confessions in modern rap history. And he did it all voluntarily. Right out the gate. Understand the environment, because context is everything on a story this heavy. He was rolling through the night with a group of young women he had met earlier at a club, and by every account, the vibe had already curdled long before the tires stopped rolling. What tipped the whole thing over? Blueface, being that man, decided to compliment this young woman by pointing at her skin like she was an item on a menu, telling her, quote, "This is a good dark skin right there. Not your beautiful, not your gorgeous, not nice to meet you." No, the rapper reached for the most colorist backhand available in the entire English language and served it up like it was a favor she was supposed to thank him for. And baby, that one he sentence is the entire ignition switch of this whole highway nightmare, and every awful thing that happened after it flows directly from that single choice of words. Listen carefully, because this is where he completely fumbled his own footing on a national stage. When a dark-skinned woman is told she is good for a dark skin, she is not being complimented. She is being audited. She is being told she passed an inspection she never asked to take. She is being told that beauty starts somewhere else, and she just happened to sneak in through a side door. She is being told her skin is a disqualifier she barely overcame, not a feature she carries with pride. And he, a man who has stood on stages and mic'd himself in front of millions, chose to speak to a black woman inside her own community that way, in front of her friends, in his car, at night. That's not flattery. That's Blueface publicly telling her that dark skin is a hurdle she cleared, not a crown she wears. And that is exactly the moment this young woman decided she was not going to nod, giggle, or shrink herself for a that man ego trip that had already gone off the rails before the seat belts even clicked. She corrected the rapper, calmly, clearly, with the exact kind of grown woman patience the internet is now praising her for on every timeline it can find her on. She told him, "Look, that framing is colorist. That framing hurts. That framing has haunted dark-skinned women for generations, and that framing is not the compliment you think it is." And he, instead of taking a beat, instead of sitting with it, instead of doing the bare minimum of a grown man in his 30s, twisted his face like she had slapped him across the mouth. He decided in real time that being educated by a 21-year-old woman was worse than being wrong in front of the entire watching world. And that decision, family, that ego pivot inside that moving vehicle, is the exact moment he transformed a car ride into a hostage situation on a highway. And here is where the temperature really tipped past the point of return, family. Every grown man in this culture eventually meets a moment where he has to choose between his ego and his humanity. And on that highway, at that exact second, he picked ego. He picked it with both hands. He picked it out loud. Now understand something about Blueface. That man is not new to this kind of implosion. The rapper has been in more publicized altercations, courtrooms, custody battles, gossip cycles, and toxicity storms than almost any rapper of his generation. He has a documented pattern of pulling the pin on the grenade and then acting shocked when it goes off in his own hand. But this one, this he highway moment, feels different, and here's why. Every previous he controversy has involved another adult, another equally armed personality, another equal terms fight with a person who came into the ring with the same tools. This time, though, Blueface picked a fight with a young woman who was calm, articulate, unarmed, unsupported, and sitting in his moving car in the dark at 4 in the morning. And when that man lost that fight on merit, on facts, on tone, and on maturity, he pulled the ultimate coward move. He weaponized the vehicle itself. All right, let's roll forward and lay these receipts down piece by piece, because the rapper did not just kick her out and drive off. Oh no. He put on a full clinic of colorist ignorance first, and every syllable of it is on tape. Inside the car, he began mockingly referring to this young woman as, quote, a beautiful problem. A beautiful problem. Sit with that phrase for a second. That phrase is a he confession dressed in a smile. To Blueface, this woman's intelligence, her pushback, her refusal to accept his backhanded framing, was a problem. Not a perspective. Not a lesson. A problem. And inside that single "that man" phrase you can hear every microaggression dark-skinned women have described for decades, condensed into 3 cursed syllables that the rapper said out loud, on camera, with his chest. Then he, still refusing to lower the temperature inside that vehicle, started demanding definitions from her like he was hosting a trivia show at gunpoint. He interrogated her on the definition of colorism, cutting her off, mocking her, calling her young, calling her dumb, calling her every derivative of stupid that his vocabulary could summon in the moment. He literally told his own passengers to turn the music down so that he could, quote, get this young dumb stuff on camera. Read that back to yourself out loud. The LA rapper was staging a humiliation set. He was not debating. Blueface was farming clips. That man was trying to break her on video, so he could post the moment as of the rapper victory lap on his social media by sunrise. That is not a heated conversation. That is a coordinated ambush by a grown man who wanted the algorithm to make him right against a young woman who was not even old enough to legally rent a car. And here is where the entire he performance completely cracks in half. She defined colorism the correct way, framing it as discrimination based on the shade of a person's skin, disproportionately impacting dark-skinned women inside the black community. Textbook. Clean. Accurate. His response. He told her to search it up on her phone right that second. She read a dictionary snippet that unfortunately pulled a bad first-line definition tied to a professional artist who works with color, and he latched onto that Google glitch like a lifeline, screaming, "You sound dumb, you sound dumb," at the top of his lungs, ignoring the actual, lived, generational, historical reality she was trying to walk him through inch by inch. Family, that reaction is the Blueface signature. That reaction is the "that man" tell. When the rapper starts screaming volume instead of arguing substance, he has already lost the room, the point, and the audience. And this young woman knew it. Her friends knew it. His own passengers knew it. Everyone in that car quietly knew he had just been outmaneuvered by someone half his fame, half his age, and twice his reading level. And the pit gets deeper, because he, humiliated and cornered and unable to score a single legitimate point, said the sentence that will haunt his career for a very long time. Looking dead into the camera, in his own voice, on his own recording, on his own device, Blueface said, quote, "You so dark you dumb. You so dark you dumb." Say that man's sentence out loud, slowly, and try, just try, to unhear it. Because in one breath the rapper fulfilled every single accusation this young woman had made against him earlier in the ride. He did not disprove colorism. He performed it. He did not debunk her argument. He decorated it in neon. He did not defuse the tension. He detonated a bomb of confirmation right into the culture's lap. He handed her the receipt on a silver platter, and the entire internet caught it before the video even hit 100,000 views on any platform. But baby, the actual danger, the actual crime-adjacent portion of the he meltdown, is what happened next. He, on that dark, unlit highway, in the dead of night, at 4 in the morning, pulled the car over and ordered her out. Not to a gas station, not to a rest stop, not to a lit parking lot, not to a residential street. To the shoulder, on a freeway, in the dark, with traffic, in heels, in a party outfit, in a city she was not familiar with. Blueface put a young black woman on the side of a highway in the middle of the night because he had lost a conversation. And when her friend hesitated to leave her stranded, that man pressured that second friend out too, then mocked both of them for being stupid enough to stand by each other on the shoulder of an unlit road. This is not a the rapper argument. This is he abandonment as intimidation. This is he using a 2-ton machine as an instrument of punishment. And any adult who has ever driven a highway at 4 a.m. already knows what could have happened out there. And the fact that he simply did not care is the story underneath the story. Let's be honest about the safety layout, family, because too many people online are chuckling at this like it's another Blueface reality TV skit. It is not. Every year, women in this country are killed on highways at night after being ejected from vehicles by men who could not handle being told no. Every year, women vanish on unlit stretches of asphalt in scenarios that started exactly like this, that man one. A disagreement. An ego. A pulled-over car. A slammed door. A pair of taillights disappearing into the fog. The rapper did not just kick a girl out. He rolled the dice on that young woman's actual life to protect his own bruised pride. That is not a punchline. That is a police report waiting to be written. That is a lawsuit being drafted by a paralegal somewhere in Los Angeles as we speak. And the internet, thank God, is finally treating this he episode with the weight it deserves instead of laughing it off. And that, family, is the part the algorithm cannot spin. That is the part the fan base cannot rewrite. That is the part the reposts and remixes and edits cannot soften, no matter how many times somebody tries. Now, one more receipt to stack on the pile, because he was not done running his mouth. After abandoning both young women on the shoulder, Blueface hopped straight onto his phone and delivered an unhinged solo monologue where he tried to spin the story in real time to his own followers. That man said she thought she was special because she was, quote, black as hell. The rapper said she thought she was superior. He accused her of being brainwashed by Instagram comment sections. And this is the he tell that is honestly the most revealing part of the entire tape. He was not upset that she was wrong. Blueface was upset that she was confident. That man was upset that a dark-skinned woman refused to accept his framing of her own beauty. The rapper was upset that, for one night, he was not the smartest person in his own car. And he, being he, weaponized the only power he had left in that moment. The steering wheel. And if that alone shook you, wait until we walk into the psychology of the whole he episode, because the deeper you go, the uglier the mirror gets. Multiple observers, including seasoned commentators who have tracked Blueface for years, have floated a theory worth pausing on. The theory is that that man was actually attracted to this young woman in a way he was not prepared for. That the rapper, historically, has not publicly platformed or dated dark-skinned women, has curated a very specific aesthetic in his public image for years, and was caught completely off guard by the fact that this dark-skinned young woman had, on top of her beauty, a brain that could out-navigate his in real time. The theory suggests he expected gratitude. The LA rapper expected softness. He expected the young woman to fold politely under his backhanded compliment and thank him for noticing her at all. And when she instead stood 10 toes down in her dignity, Blueface's ego short-circuited, because he was not just being challenged, he was being challenged by someone he was actually drawn to. That is the kind of internal collision a healthy man processes with a therapist over the course of a season. That man processed it with the passenger door. Family, let's talk about the pattern, because the rapper has done this before, and pretending otherwise is doing the culture a disservice. He has publicly humiliated women he was romantically involved with. The LA rapper has streamed intimate arguments for entertainment. He has monetized his own toxic relationships. Blueface has treated the women in his orbit like content on a rotation, like they exist to service his brand and not the other way around. That man has cycled through public relationships with a level of drama that would exhaust a soap opera writer. And the culture, for years, gave the rapper a pass because, quote, that's just he. That excuse is dead as of this highway tape. This he highway moment kills that excuse. Because you cannot look at what he did on that shoulder, at 4 a.m, to a woman he barely knew, and pretend it is a personality quirk. That is a values reveal. That is Blueface telling the world exactly who he is when the cameras roll and no one important is in the room to hold him accountable. Now here is where the That Man story stops being just the rapper story, because this is bigger than one man with a microphone. This is the culture we have allowed to metastasize around dark-skinned women in this community for far too long. Dark-skinned women are told they are pretty for a dark skin. Dark-skinned women are told their intelligence is threatening. Dark-skinned women are told to smile through backhanded flattery because rejecting it makes them ungrateful. Dark-skinned women are told, again and again, that any protest they raise is proof of an attitude, not proof of a valid grievance. And he, on that highway, at 4 a.m, performed every single one of those slanders in less than a single hour. The LA rapper compressed a lifetime of microaggressions into a single ride. So when you see dark-skinned women online rallying around this young sister right now, please understand something. They are not overreacting. They are recognizing. They are recognizing a pattern that has followed them from playgrounds to prom nights to boardrooms to his back seat, and they are done being polite about it. And by the way this young woman handled the Blueface moment on camera is nothing short of a masterclass. She did not scream. She did not curse that man out. She did not throw a drink. She held her posture. She held her definition. She held her ground. Even when the rapper was screaming, "You so dark, you dumb," 3 inches from her face, she did not flinch. She did not shrink. She did not apologize for the shade of her own skin. She was every dark-skinned woman who has ever had to sit calmly across from a man who mistook his platform for actual authority. And she won that exchange the moment he pulled the car over. Because the second he put her out, he confessed with his actions that he could not hold the conversation with his words. Blueface confessed that the definitions she chose were sharper than the wheels he was driving. That man confessed that a 21-year-old woman with a working dictionary was scarier to him than the freeway traffic he was about to strand her on. The rapper did not kick her out. He tapped out on live television. All right, family, let's talk about the fallout, because it is spreading like a grease fire through the entire industry timeline. Within hours of the He clip surfacing, the timeline was carpeted in reactions from dark-skinned women, from black male allies, from creators, from commentators, from journalists, from professors, and even from other rappers who quietly distanced themselves from the He brand overnight. Business owners started deleting old Blueface collaborations from their pages. Podcast hosts started rescheduling that man interviews. Brands that were quietly negotiating with him reportedly hit pause on every single conversation. Because if there is one lesson corporate America has learned the hard way, it is that a He-level colorism scandal is not something a marketing team can wallpaper over with a canned public apology and a stock donation. This He clip lives forever. This He highway clip is now permanent evidence, playable on any phone, on any date, in any deposition, in any custody hearing, in any brand risk assessment meeting for the next decade. And the digital autopsy on Blueface is only just getting started. Every syllable that man said in that car is being clipped, subtitled, translated, and turned into evidence on channels around the world. Every gesture the rapper made is being frame analyzed. Every previous He interview where he described his romantic preferences is being resurfaced and stitched to this new footage as proof of a pattern that goes back years. The LA rapper can delete the video. He can post a fake apology. Blueface can pretend the whole thing was a joke he did not think through. It does not matter anymore. The clip has been mirrored, ripped, backed up, and archived on servers that man does not control and cannot reach. This the rapper tape is going to outlive his relevance in the rap game. And unless he does something drastic and public and genuine, this is the sentence people will read out loud at the top of every future He headline for years. Quote, "You so dark you dumb. Baby, let's zoom back to the young woman herself for a second, because she deserves to be centered in her own story. She has not asked for fame. She has not started a GoFundMe. She has not run to the tabloids. She has not given 20 interviews. She has simply existed as the receipt. And that quiet dignity is what is turning her into a folk hero in real time. Because dark-skinned women across the timeline are seeing themselves in her posture. They are seeing every dinner, every date, every DM slide, every, quote, 'You're pretty for a dark skin' moment they have ever suffered through in their own lives. And they are collectively saying, out loud, enough is enough. This Blueface highway story is not a that man's story anymore. It is a lit match on top of a pile of kindling that has been drying for decades in this community, and the rapper just walked up to it with a can of gasoline in his hand. And here comes the harder question, family. Where were the other adults inside that he carred during all of this? Because let's be clear, the LA rapper was not driving alone that night. There were multiple grown people inside that vehicle. There were passengers with functioning eyes and functioning ears who watched him escalate a young woman verbally for over an hour, watched Blueface refuse to de-escalate the situation, watched him pull over on a highway shoulder in the dark, and watched him eject two young women onto the side of the road. And not one adult in that car said, "Hey, stop the car for a second and think about what you are about to do." Not one. That silence is the second scandal inside this scandal. Because every time a He incident goes public, we find out later that there was a full ecosystem of enablers laughing behind the camera. And this He highway tape is no exception. The passengers who stayed quiet are just as responsible as the man who was driving. Now let's play a little counterfactual for a second, because it really matters here. Imagine Blueface had done exactly this same thing to a light-skinned woman. Imagine that man had said, "You so light you dumb," into the camera. Imagine the rapper had pointed at a light-skinned woman's face inside his car and said, "This is a good light skin right there," in the same tone. The internet would have burned He down to the ground before sunrise. There would be marches organized. There would be think pieces published. There would be talk shows scheduled. There would be a full He press tour of forced, weepy, pre-written apologies. But because the target of this He episode was a dark-skinned woman, we have had to fight for 2 entire days just to get segments of the online audience to admit Blueface did anything wrong at all. That double standard, that quiet, corrosive, deeply embedded double standard, is exactly the colorism this young woman was trying to define inside the car in the first place. And that man, ironically, has just handed her the biggest teaching platform of her life on a global scale. Let's roll into the receipts one more time, because the rapper defenders online are already dispatching their scripts, and we need to smash the excuses before they harden into a consensus that lets He skate. Excuse number 1. Quote, "The LA rapper was just complimenting her." Wrong. A compliment does not require a qualifier that removes half the population from the standard. He did not say she was beautiful. Blueface said she was beautiful for a dark skin, and that framing carries the entire brutal history of colorism inside it like a splinter. Excuse number 2. Quote, "She was arguing with him." Wrong. Arguing back inside a private car is not a crime. And even if it were, the punishment is not a highway shoulder at 4 in the morning. Excuse number 3. Quote, "It's the rapper, what do you expect?" That is not an excuse. That is a full confession that we have collectively allowed he to lower the bar so far that ejecting a woman onto a freeway is now considered on brand for him. That is the sickness. That is the actual scandal underneath the scandal. Family, let's also talk about accountability structures, because a he apology on Instagram is not going to cut this open. He, if he wants any real road back into the public's good graces, cannot just post a paragraph on his story. Blueface would need to publicly acknowledge, on video, on record, that colorism is real and specific and lethal inside the community. That man would need to publicly acknowledge that abandoning a woman on a highway shoulder is potentially criminal, not comedic. The rapper would need to donate meaningfully, publicly, and repeatedly to organizations that support dark-skinned survivors of exactly this kind of humiliation. And he would need to shut up and listen to those women speak for a very long time before he ever tried to speak again. Anything less than that from him is theater. And baby, we are done applauding he theater around here. Let's also give the young woman her flowers one more time. She walked into a Blueface car as a total stranger and walked out as a case study in dignity that will be taught in college classrooms. She could have escalated. She could have hit back. She could have thrown a drink in his face. She could have gotten physical inside that moving vehicle. Any court in the country would have understood the frustration of a woman being screamed at over the shade of her skin at 4 a.m. But she chose language. She chose definition. She chose reason. She chose composure. And when the rapper put her out on the shoulder in the dark, she chose to keep her posture even in the moment of physical danger. That is not weakness. That is not softness. That is the strongest posture a woman can hold. And every dark-skinned woman watching this he clip is quietly cheering her on for not letting he fracture her sense of self on the way to the pavement. Now let's talk about what actually comes next for the he brand. Because make no mistake about it, this incident is not going to blow over the way past Blueface scandals have blown over. Here is exactly why. Colorism, unlike a random personal beef or a music industry feud, is a wound the black community actively organizes around. Colorism has scholars. Colorism has organizations. Colorism has annual conferences, publishing arms, activist networks, mainstream media allies, and a very deep bench of experts who have been waiting years for the perfect proof of concept moment. When that man said, "You so dark you dumb," on camera, the rapper did not just alienate one young woman on a highway. He alienated an entire coordinated cultural front that has been waiting years for a viral proof point exactly like this one. The LA rapper handed them the tape himself. And that tape is now being downloaded into curricula, into panels, into podcasts, into TED-style talks, into corporate DEI training decks. He is about to become a permanent textbook example, and Blueface will not get a single say in how he is taught. And here is the layered irony inside the That Man situation. The very platforms the rapper has used to build the he persona over the years, the reality shows, the streams, the podcast circuits, the boxing spectacles, the interview sit-downs, are the exact same platforms that will now use this he highway clip against him in perpetuity. Because those platforms need engagement, and there is no engagement magnet quite like a public reckoning of a rapper the audience already loves to argue about. Expect the he clip to be replayed on loop by every daytime talk host, every panel show, every commentary channel, every gossip queen with a ring light. Blueface will not be able to log on for months without seeing his own face saying the words, "You so dark you dumb," cycling through his own feed. That is the price of the tape. That is his new algorithmic shadow, and it will follow him city to city, tour to tour, interview to interview, all the way through the end of this decade. Let me speak plainly, family, because that is what this the rapper moment actually calls for. Dark-skinned women in this community deserve better than being somebody's exotic surprise at a party. Dark-skinned women deserve to be told they are beautiful, full stop, no qualifier, no asterisk, no, for a dark skin, tag hanging off the sentence. Dark-skinned women deserve to walk into any room and not have to defend the shade of their own reflection to grown men with microphones. Dark-skinned women deserve men who see them as a first choice, not a plot twist, not a fetish, not a novelty. And this entire he incident is a masterclass in exactly what happens when a man is allowed to grow to full adulthood without ever being forced to interrogate his own biases or his own preferences. The LA rapper is a symptom of a much larger disease. The disease is bigger than any one rapper. And if we do not name it out loud right now, we will keep watching he-style incidents unfold on highways, in cars, in DMs, in green rooms, and in relationships across this culture every single week. Now, before we close the file on this Blueface highway saga, I want you to sit with one image for a moment. Picture that young woman standing on the side of an unlit freeway at 4 in the morning, watching the rapper's taillights disappear into the dark. Picture the cold air on her arms. Picture the sound of passing headlights whooshing past her. Picture the friend who chose to stand next to her rather than let her be there alone. Picture the phone in her hand as she tried to figure out how to get home safely. Picture the fear. Picture the humiliation. Picture the exhaustion. That image, family, is what the rapper conversation about colorism looks like in real life when you take it out of the abstract. That is the endgame of his ego. That is the receipt written in real-world consequences. That is the reality dark-skinned women have been trying to describe to this culture for generations. And it took one highway meltdown to finally make the culture see it in high definition on a widescreen. And every dark-skinned woman scrolling this timeline right now already knows exactly why that feels like a receipt written directly for her. Every single one. And this is exactly why we cannot let this story die quietly in the timeline over the next few days. Because if this Blueface tape becomes just another 48-hour cycle, if we scroll past that man's scandal like we scrolled past the last one, if we let the rapper release a half-baked apology and move on with our lives, we will have taught every young man watching that colorism has no cost, that abandonment has no cost, that humiliating a dark-skinned woman on camera has no cost. And that is a lesson we cannot afford to teach the next generation. So share this story right now. Tell your group chat. Play the tape for the men in your life. Play it for your sons. Play it for your brothers. Play it for the fans in your circle. Make them sit with the sentence, "You so dark you dumb," until they fully understand exactly what he did with his own mouth to a young woman who did not deserve any of it. And there is one more Blueface angle we need to dig into, because it is one of the most disturbing pieces of the entire tape. That man, at multiple points inside that car, tried to drag one of the young woman's friends into siding with him against her. The rapper tried to divide them. He tried to manipulate a girl into abandoning her friend so that he could isolate the woman he was actually targeting. That is a classic textbook manipulation tactic. That is the exact playbook predators use to peel a target away from her support system. And the fact that he deployed it in real time, on camera, without hesitation, tells you everything you need to know about how he operates when he decides a woman needs to be broken down. The friend, thankfully, refused to abandon her. And when the friend refused, Blueface simply kicked both of them out. That is not a lost temper. That is that man showing you a strategy he has clearly used before. Baby, let me also give you a quick preview of what is coming next in the rapper story, because it is going to get louder, not quieter. Sources close to the young woman have confirmed to independent creators that she is currently consulting with legal counsel about her options going forward. Sources close to his team have confirmed that internal, private conversations about damage control are already happening at high speed. And sources close to the industry at large have confirmed that at least 2 brands with pending deals have paused those conversations indefinitely until this story develops further. Translation: this highway tape is not a one-day story. This Blueface highway tape is the front end of a legal, financial, and cultural avalanche that is going to reshape how the industry treats colorism scandals for years to come. And that man is standing at the bottom of the mountain with a shovel. Now, one more thing before we hit that comment section. To every dark-skinned young woman watching the rapper story unfold with a knot in her stomach, please hear me. What he said on that tape is not a reflection of your worth. It is a reflection of his brokenness. What he did on that highway is not a comment on your beauty. It is a confession of his cowardice. Your skin is not a discount. Your skin is not a caveat. Your skin is not a hurdle. Your skin is a heritage, a history, a lineage, and a light. And no rap-adjacent ego with a car and a camera gets to redefine any of that for you. If he stumbled into your DMs tomorrow with a pretty compliment, you would have every right to laugh, block, and move on with your day. Blueface has told you exactly who that man is. Believe him the first time. And here is one final the rapper receipt for the road, because we have to close this file with the ugly truth. He has spent years telling the culture, in interviews and streams and songs, that he does not particularly value dark-skinned women, that he prefers a specific look, that he has a specific type. The LA rapper said all of that on the record. He put it in his own mouth. Blueface published it on his own channels. And the culture, being what it is, mostly shrugged. But this highway tape is different. This highway tape puts a face on the abstraction. This highway tape shows you what that man preference looks like when a dark-skinned woman refuses to be humbled by his attention. This highway tape shows you what the rapper preference looks like when a dark-skinned woman has the audacity to know the definition of a word he does not want to be defined. This highway tape shows you what a he preference looks like at 4 a.m. on a shoulder, from behind, in the dark. Watch it once. Watch it twice. Understand it fully. And do not ever let anyone in your life tell you that he just made a mistake. Blueface made a choice. Repeatedly. On camera. Family. That is the layout. That is the highway. That is the that man confession, laid out in daylight, timestamped by his own camera, published by his own hands. And I need you to flood these comments right now, because we have 3 questions on the table for the culture. Number 1. Do you agree that the rapper saying, "You so dark you dumb," proves he is a textbook colorist who needs to be permanently checked by the culture and by the industry that platforms him? Number 2. Do you believe kicking a young woman out on a highway shoulder at 4 in the morning crosses the line from bad behavior into criminal negligence that should be reviewed by law enforcement? And number 3. Do you buy the theory that he was actually attracted to this young woman on some level, and that his ego collapsed the exact moment she refused to shrink for him? Drop your take. Drop your receipts. Drop your name for who you think should sit he down publicly and force him to answer for this on the record. Every comment gets read. And listen, before you scroll away from this tab, do me one favor, because tomorrow's follow-up is going to blow the doors off this entire story wide open. Smash that like button, hit subscribe, and turn the notifications on right now, because somebody very close to the Blueface camp has quietly started leaking behind the scenes, and what they are saying about how that man treats the women who orbit him privately is honestly worse than anything you just watched happen in that car. You will not want to miss it. Baby, keep your volume high, keep your comments loud, keep your dignity higher than any the rapper headline that ever gets typed about you. And I will see you in the next one when the receipts drop. Signing off. Until the next confession lands on our desk. Stay sharp.